Hello my friend, Stevie B here. So I've made a few videos about Artlist in the past, but I thought that I would make a fresh one here as I still get a lot of questions about working with Artlist, and I figured I'd take all of those questions that I hear again and again and try to tackle them in this video. People have been sending me a lot of messages on Instagram, sending me a lot of emails. I haven't been able to get back to all of you. I'm sorry. Hopefully this video will help. I want to make it absolutely clear that I don't work for Artlist. This is not a sponsored video. I'm not speaking on their behalf. I do have several years of experience being on their platform. I've had a number of successful tracks in their catalog, and I've had the pleasure of working with Artlist Originals, which is their in-house production team. So I'll speak a bit on that. I'll try to offer some insight into the process of applying. That's mostly what people are asking me about. Hopefully Artlist doesn't mind me making this video. I do think that they try to answer some of these things on their website, but not all of it is totally clear. So if I got anything wrong, Artlist, please let me know. And if you guys have any other questions that I missed in this video, please throw them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, the first question I'm going to tackle here is, what kind of music is Artlist looking for? I don't get this question a lot, but it's one that does come up, and it's a good one to kick off this conversation with. The truth is, I don't really have an accurate way to answer that at any given time because the needs of their catalog is always changing depending on user trends and user preferences. But you only have to look at their homepage to get a really good sense of what's working in their catalog. So when you're searching music, you can change the filter to most popular. I highly recommend studying the most popular tracks, like the 20 most popular tracks that come up, which are always changing. You can also change the filter to staff picks, and between those two filter searches, that should give you a pretty clear picture of what kind of music they're looking for. With that being said, I should warn you that even if you do send them music that is a really good fit for them, they may still turn it down. It may be that they already have enough music in that genre or style. Ultimately, if and when they do turn you down, they don't tell you why. You're just going to get a generic thanks but no thanks kind of email. And while it sucks that you won't really know why you got rejected, you just have to keep in mind that they're dealing with like hundreds of applications, probably on a daily basis. And so it's not really feasible for them to give everybody like a detailed response of why their application got turned down. Ultimately, the bar is set very high in terms of quality at Artlist. And the good news is that it doesn't mean that you can't reapply. I think one of the coolest things about Artlist is that they've always kept the doors open to new applications. And hopefully it stays that way. Quite a few people have sent me links to their applications that got turned down and asked me for like my thoughts on why it may have been rejected. Listening back to some of these submissions that, have been rejected, I don't always have a good answer as, to why. Sometimes it's not as obvious as like production quality or like mixing issues. Sometimes it's just like really talented artists who send them amazing music, but they maybe haven't quite wrapped their head around like what production music actually is, or sync music. I won't get into all of that in this video, but if you are interested in understanding those concepts and the production music business overall, I do have a free course called Intro to Music Licensing. You can find the link for that in the description of this video. Okay, the big one, is Artlist exclusive or non-exclusive? I get this one all the time. Another version of this question that I hear quite often is, will Artlist accept music that I already have published on Spotify and other platforms? So the answer is they're both. They have both types of contracts. Yes, Artlist does engage in non-exclusive contracts with some of their contributors. I don't know how much non-exclusive music they're onboarding these days. In my experience so far, it's totally fine to pitch them music that has been already published on your Spotify page, but here's what you need to understand. Artlist needs to be in control of the Content ID situation. So if you opted into Content ID through your distributor, that could be a deal breaker. Now, as for having the same music on Artlist coexist on other non-exclusive music libraries, the problem is that even if the deal that you strike up with them is non-exclusive, the fact that they will want control of the Content ID situation means that you'll be hard-pressed to find another music library that wants to onboard your music if they or you don't have control over that Content ID. So the content ID stipulation makes things kind of complicated. It effectively makes it so that even non-exclusive contracts are quite restrictive. That's just something to be aware of. And beyond that, of course, you need to know that Artlist also engages in exclusive contracts that are quite a bit different. The vast majority of my own catalog is exclusive with Artlist. And while I don't know this for a fact, I would assume that this is their preference when onboarding new music. And the reason for that is just quite simple. You have to consider that from a business perspective, it's much more cost effective for them to pay you an agreed upon one-time buyout fee, for the music rather than to pay you royalties in perpetuity. And also important to understand is that under an exclusive contract with them, they'll also act as your distributor. So they'll publish your music to your Spotify page and they'll take a stake in your streaming royalties, much like a label would if they were going to sign your music. So these two types of contracts are quite different. They both have very different terms. And in saying all of this, I think when you're pitching music to Artlist, simply put, the most ideal position that you can be in is to send them music that hasn't been released or uploaded anywhere. That will open up the most options for you. Okay, what is Artlist Originals? People ask me this sometimes. It's their in-house production team that creates music specifically tailored to the library's catalog needs. It's made up of talented musicians from all over the world. I've been working with them for years now. It's kind of a godsend, to be honest. Not only does the work they provide me account for like a significant chunk of my annual income, but I also really enjoy the challenge. They regularly send me assignments. I work very closely with one of their team leaders who gives me very pointed feedback on my work. And I've learned a lot from the process. It's been real cool. Something interesting to note is that the first submission that I sent to Artlist was signed under a non-exclusive contract. And I didn't even know that Originals existed for quite some time, actually. When I did hear about them, I reached out to inquire about it, and they sent me back like an application form, and I was eventually approved. This was all a few years ago. I don't know if it still works like that, to be honest. But as I mentioned earlier, if you send Artlist a submission, it may be that they get back to you and they want to sign it under an exclusive Originals deal. And from there, I would presume you'd be in a good position to approach them about working with the Originals team as like a musician or a producer for hire. My music had already been on their platform for, I think, over a year before I began working closely with the Originals team. And some of my music had done pretty darn well on the platform, so I was in a good position to show some experience when I applied. And speaking of applying, the next question that I get so often is, do I need a website and social media presence to apply? Okay, so I made a video, I think sometime last year, discussing preparation for submitting to libraries like Artlist and Motion Array. Some key points that I've discussed previously were having certain elements in place before applying. One suggestion coming from the members of the Motion Array team specifically was to have an online presence, such as like a website or a Spotify profile. I think some of the discussion around this subject has been kind of misunderstood because a lot of folks have reached out to me and we're very concerned about having like very few followers on Instagram and like very few monthly listeners on Spotify. And I'm really not sure how much Artlist is concerned about that, if at all. I honestly had one song on Spotify when I applied. I had 0 monthly listeners. I'm serious. But I had a good website with a strong demo reel. And I was able to show some of the work that I had done on my website. And I also had like some professional looking photos too. So it was like a pretty good website. I think that they were able to get a good sense of like who I was. And I think that this is important. I think Artlist, is a very visually oriented platform with a very carefully crafted brand. Each song links back to a real artist with a real profile and bio. And this is a cool aspect about the platform, which I think sets them apart from a lot of other libraries. I think that probably what they're looking for in their applicants is some form of online presence that demonstrates experience. A website, along with platforms like Spotify, can really just help them to understand that you are someone that takes your work seriously. I really don't know if you need to worry that much about having a lot of followers. They're not hiring influencers. I think they're just looking for really talented musicians. Coming back to websites, I've always maintained that having a website is a really powerful tool for music producers if you're doing custom work especially, or for artists, of course. My website is linked to the signature of every email that I send out, and potential clients do click on it. People do want to get a sense of who they're getting involved with. And through your website, you can convey your strengths and what sets you apart, what makes you special. Okay, so that covers the main questions. Let's move on to some other really interesting questions that people have asked me. A lot of these come from comments that I've got on previous Artlist videos. I'm just going to sort of tackle these in rapid fire mode. Here we go. Okay, my good friend Adrian asks, out of curiosity, did you notice any kind of correlation between the type of contract you have with Artlist, exclusive or non-exclusive, and the success of these tracks on Spotify? Okay, the answer to that question is no, I have not. And this goes for not only Spotify, but for the Artlist platform as well. Some of my non-exclusive tracks have been bestsellers on Artlist. Some of my exclusive tracks have also been bestsellers. And as far as the crossover on Spotify goes, it seems to me that the music just sort of trends naturally based on organic interest, from what I can see so far anyway. Next question is, what is the ideal number of tracks that one should apply to for Artlist? Does it have to be an album of 7-8 tracks of one genre, or can they be a few, but in different genres? Okay, so this is like 2 questions, but I think these are great questions. I think Artlist actually prefers smaller submissions than 7 to 8 tracks. If I were applying today, I'd probably send them like 5 tracks max. Even less than 5, I think, would suffice. I'm currently working on helping somebody with an upcoming submission to Artlist, and it's a 3-track submission. So somewhere between 3 and 5, I think, would probably be my recommendation. Okay, next question. I was under the impression that selling your music on Artlist or a royalty-free site meant that you couldn't collect royalties at all. How is your PRO still collecting royalties? Okay, this is an excellent question. And it's one that I attempt to answer in my Intro to Music Licensing course. It gets a little confusing, but when music libraries say that they're royalty-free, the term it gets confusing. It's kind of a misnomer in a sense, because I can still earn performance royalties in the back end if my music is used in broadcast media and the cue sheets are filed correctly. I don't make a lot of money on the back end with my performance royalties, but it is starting to accumulate over time, and it's all coming from my Artlist catalog, which is, like the question said, royalty-free. The thing is, royalty-free music is typically marketed to content creators and indie filmmakers, and those end users don't pay royalties for usage, nor do they pay fees to performance royalty organizations. But I think because Artlist has such a massive presence in licensing, the catalog is often sought after by music supervisors and production companies who do sync the music to TV shows, advertisements, movies, all of which has happened to me. And thankfully, like I said, I am seeing my performance royalty payouts increase on the back end over time. Now, using TuneSat, I've been able to kind of search a lot of these placements and see where they're landing. And a lot of it does, fall through the cracks. A lot of the times, cue sheets are not filed for royalty-free music. So I want to make that clear. Okay, next question. I've been researching Artlist and I can't find how much the artist gets paid for each download. Could you speak to that? Okay, this is a great question as well. And unfortunately, I know this is going to be kind of disappointing, but it's a difficult one to answer because it's not a fixed rate. I might do a separate video sometime soon about how much I've earned from Artlist, especially last year. But under the non-exclusive contracts, the payouts for downloads are calculated differently every year as a percentage of their net revenue, and also subscriber behaviors and membership tiers play into the exact amount of a single download. It's a little bit opaque, unfortunately. Like, I can't tell you the exact way things are calculated, and the same thing can be said, by the way, for how performance royalty organizations calculate their royalty payouts as well. All I'll say is that when millions of users are on the website and your music is being downloaded in the tens of thousands, the payouts are substantial. I'm very satisfied with it. I earned quite a bit of money from Artlist last year, which I'm really grateful for. But it's not really fair for me to kind of say, well, here's what every download worked out to be in like monetary value, because I think it really differs from artist to artist, and it also differs year to year. And as a reminder, I don't receive download royalties for a lot of my Artlist catalog because it's under an exclusive contract, and those contracts are one-time buyouts. Okay, I literally just checked my phone and got a bunch of Artlist questions. Maybe I should tackle them right now. Okay, Irene asks, will I be able to have the same song on both Artlist and Epidemic Sound? I don't know much about Epidemic Sound. I don't work with them. But from what I understand, I think Epidemic only deals with exclusive buyout contracts. I could be wrong about that. So I don't know if this is the most accurate answer, but I would guess no. You probably can't have music on both of those websites. Another interesting question from Irene here. How does submitting my song to Artlist affect my copyright and money that I make by performing my songs live? That's an interesting question. If it's a non-exclusive contract, then you still own the rights to the music, and you'd still be filing that music in your PRO yourself. And you'd also be earning like 100% of the writers and publishers' share of that performance royalty backend. So there's no conflict really in terms of performing it live. What you have to realize about the exclusive contracts is that you're transferring the rights of your music to Artlist. They own it. So, say you sign an album over to Artlist under an exclusive contract. I'm sure it's not a big deal to keep performing those songs live, but you just have to remember that if some A&R guy in the audience sees you, or some sync agent, for example, hears your track and is like, I love that song. I want to, put it in this movie. Can we sign a deal? You're going to have to say, oh, well, I don't own this music anymore. You're going to have to talk to Artlist. And that's the downside. You don't have control over the rights of your music anymore. But the upside is that you get an upfront fee for it. So for someone like me who writes a lot of production music, it's a great way to make a living. For a performing artist, it's a bit of a different thing. You might not want to sell the rights to your music completely because once you do that, it's gone forever. You can't buy it back. And I think that's just a personal decision at the end of the day. If I wrote a tune that I thought was like a super hit song for sure as an artist, I might not want to sign it over to anybody under an exclusive contract. But that's not really what I'm doing. I'm writing music, specifically for advertisements and for YouTube content. It's production music. It's a little different. My artist music, I keep it separate. They're two different worlds. All right, I'll leave it there. I don't want this video to be too long. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that answered some of your questions. Please feel free to leave a comment below if you've got any questions or if there's something that I missed here. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. And if you're interested in learning more about music licensing and how it all works, as I mentioned, I do have a free course. It's called Intro to Music Licensing. You can find that link in the description of this video. In the meantime, wishing you all well. Hit that like button for me if you got something from this video. Subscribe to the channel. Happy composing. I will see you next time. Take care.